ready to go when you guys are.
Are you ready, Melissa? Yeah.
Good morning, citizens of Leavenworth. I hope everyone is doing well, yourselves, your family, your friends, and right off the top, I'd like to thank the citizens of this city for staying at home, except to do those essential activities like going to the grocery store and going to medical appointments or going to a pharmacy to get required medication. As I've said during our previous Facebook Live town halls, Leavenworth is quiet, and that's the way it should be right now, but I recognize everybody's sacrifice. I salute you and just encourage everyone to keep up the great work, the contribution, because we are a great community. And this is indeed the fourth town hall I've had as mayor, and holding them about once a week now. The first three focused on the COVID-19 health crisis and the consequences to our economic system, our small businesses, and this one will pretty much take the same approach. I'll begin with my comments here. Joining me today is the city manager, Mr. Paul Kramer, and the police chief, Chief Pat Kitchens. And so after I'm finished, I'm probably going to turn it over to Chief Kitchens to give a little update in terms of his responsibilities within the city and how enforcement is going with respect to the stay-at-home orders. And then we were supposed to have Mr. Jamie Miller, the Leavenworth County Health Officer, come today, but he's a very busy man. He got a last-minute call for an important meeting that he has to attend within the county, so maybe we'll have him next week. Let me just start off with a quick review of the information from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And this information is as of yesterday at 12 noon, and it's the number of cases, and I'm just going to review that very quickly. Yesterday they had posted at 12 noon, 7 April 2020, the number of cases in Kansas as 900, hospitalizations 223, and deaths 27. Now obviously if we go, in about an hour and check their website, it'll be updated, but that was the information as of yesterday at noon. The ages range from 0, so there's, as I said last week, a baby who has been diagnosed with has tested positive for coronavirus. And the oldest citizen is 97 years old. Number of males, 406. Number of females, 491. And then there's 3 that aren't reported, so that equals the 900 cases that I just talked about. So females, last time I reported was kind of an even split. Right now females are more females have been tested positive for COVID-19 than males. And the age, the most cases are in the age category of 55 to 64 years old, 181. The next category with the highest number of cases is 45 to 54 years old, and that's 172 people. The county with most of the cases is the Johnson County with 219. Second is Wyandotte County with 192. Third is Sedgwick County, which of course is the county where Wichita is located, 134. And then Leavenworth with 43 is tied for fourth with Shawnee County. And then in fifth is Douglas County with 38. So I just wanted to review that information. And then yesterday, as of 3 p.m., there's an update that's posted on the county's health office website devoted to COVID-19. And they post a map of the county, and they put the numbers of cases depending on where those cases are located. And the number of confirmed tests for positive for COVID-19 within the county of Leavenworth as of yesterday at 3 p.m. is 51. And then they also have a category called self-reporting, and they're kind of probable cases of somebody having COVID-19, but not confirmed by a test. But these cases are classified as probable if an individual self-reports symptomology that meets criteria for COVID-19. And there's 103 of those, so that equals, as of yesterday, about 104 cases, but 51 of which are confirmed by an actual test. And there has been, and 7 people are hospitalized. And then there unfortunately was one death that was reported last week. I believe it was Thursday, and been out there, and a 50-year-old woman who had underlying health conditions and unfortunately passed away. So that's our review. That's a good map. You can enlarge it when you go to the website, and it's good information, and I recommend it as a source if you're interested in a current update on COVID-19. I did get a letter, Colonel Hung, who's the garrison commander for Fort Leavenworth. You know, they're doing their darn best to take all the necessary precautions, and he did send out a letter, a memo yesterday, and I think the one thing I do want to share with you, I mean, this is that a cloth face covering. And this is what he said in his short paragraph. He said, per Department of Defense guidance, everyone is strongly encouraged to use cloth face coverings in public settings. Now, this is, you know, directed to his military community on Fort Leavenworth. But for those people who don't live on post, you know, active duty military or National Guard or our retiree population, this is what I wanted to share with you. Cloth face coverings around your nose and mouth are required in retail and medical facilities on post on Fort Leavenworth to include the on-post exchange, the commissary, the shopette, and Munson Army Health Center. So once again, cloth face coverings around your nose and mouth are required in retail and medical facilities on post on Fort Leavenworth to include on-post exchange, commissary, the shopette, and Munson Army Health Center. New order. There was an order that came out yesterday from Governor Kelly, an executive order 20-18, I believe. And the most important thing, or most pertinent thing that I want to share with you is that she announced in this order that she is imposing crowd limits on religious gatherings in advance of Easter Sunday. The new executive order requires churches to keep attendance below 10 people. Previous orders mandated that churches adhere to the 6-foot separation for social distancing, and of course that remains in effect. But the new order imposes the limit of no more than 10 parishioners or congregants. The new executive order takes effect at 12:01 p.m. today, the 8th of April 2020. And this also applies to funerals. But that's the main the main essence or the main change in this order 2018 from the previous orders 2016 and 2014. Now, I just want to point out, and we have a wonderful number of churches in the 20s, probably close to 30 within our community, and this is a very, very important week for our churches and their congregations. So I wanted to share that, but also I know that some of the churches are coming up and offering services, particularly during this Holy Week, online, and so I know that hopefully many of them are able to do this, and I know it's hard for somebody who doesn't have a computer or an internet connection to participate, but if you do, just make sure you know what information's available as far as your church doing that. Hopefully I think many are. I know my church, Immaculate Conception St. Joseph, is doing that, and I don't know if Father David McAvoy ever thought that he would be doing this during Holy Week, but he's flexible, he's adaptable, and that's how I'm going to attend services later this week. So just a little heads up there, and once again, we got to be adaptive, we've got to adjust, and I know our faith communities, our churches are doing that in spades, so thank you. And over the next few days, Police Chief Pat Kitchens and his staff will work to communicate with our churches to make sure they are aware of the changes that I've just reviewed. And I think this is probably a good time to turn it over to Chief, and he'll cover that and a few other topics. And I thank him for coming this morning and spending a little time with us. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let's continue the discussion about the churches. I'm seeing some questions on Facebook about some specific sub-guidelines regarding that. It's true that the rules and regulations now limit the number of parishioners to 10, but there's some exceptions that the governor outlined for like the preacher and the choir and those kinds of things. So the best thing that we're going to do is put the governor's order on all of our social media platforms and make that available for people to look at, to make certain that they understand exactly what those rules are and exactly what those criteria are and where there might be a little room for some exceptions. And so that'll be available fairly soon. But there are some exceptions to that. Again, I have a small group of police officers that I have assigned specifically to the issue of enforcement on all of the areas, including businesses and the like. And so we will be spending a lot of time over the course of the next 72 hours either communicating, we'll make phone calls, stopping by and visiting to make absolutely sure they have a copy of the order and that they're fully informed about what those orders entail relative to church. That obviously, again, as the mayor said, is a big week this week. And so we will work very hard. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact the police department. We will do our very best to get those questions specifically answered about what may or may not happen. We've already seen some, as the mayor indicated, some churches going to online services, which is probably about the best alternative at this point to make sure that, that there are in compliance with that order. As it relates to overall enforcement in our community, one of my favorite things about our community is that we have a lot of really, really good corporate citizens. We've had a lot of very, very good positive interaction with the business community. We understand and they understand that they're struggling to deal with the economic impact of the health orders. They are by and large doing everything that they can to comply with the order. There has been no defiance of the order where people are just openly defying. They are doing the best they can to, in some regard, meet the requirements of the health order and seeing if they can still maintain some element of their business by doing things online and the such. And so I'm very, very pleased by that. I have yet not felt compelled to cite anybody in our community for a violation. We've done a lot of education, we've done a lot of communicating, and we continue to work very hard to ensure that we understand what the public health orders are as they come out and the new rules apply. We've had a lot of very good discussion with the county attorney, Mr. Thompson, and his office, making sure that we, understand how it's going to work if we feel necessary to do that. I know Mr. Thompson's office has had a lot of really good discussion with our Kansas Attorney General, Derek Schmidt, in his office, making sure that we are all, as best we can, uniformly applying the enforcement provisions if they're necessary. And so we continue to work very hard on that. There's a small group of officers that are out periodically, probably once a day or once every other day, ensuring that businesses remain in compliance and that the public health order is being followed. And again, I'll reiterate, we have not yet felt compelled to write any violations for that. On to a slightly different topic of how we are dealing with the costs associated with the coronavirus. As part of the stimulus package that was passed recently by the federal government on March the 31st, the police department received notification from the Bureau of Justice Assistance that we would be allocated a little more than $76,000 that would be specifically designed to help our community and in particular the public safety sector, police and fire, and the health sector on costs associated with dealing with the coronavirus. So for example, if we need to buy a bulk quantity of gloves and masks and hand sanitizer, or we feel like we have to pay overtime to deal with any sort of coronavirus incident, those monies will be made available to us. We'll be coming to the City Commission at the next meeting on Tuesday and getting formal approval to apply for that process, and then we will have that money available to us to help in the offset. We have not yet That has not yet been a problem in terms of finances. We have operational money in our budget, but certainly those funds will help us as we move forward. It's eligible for 2 years between this year and next to help us offset those costs. So we'll be proceeding with that. And making sure that all of the public safety officials in our community have the proper level of equipment and needs are taken care of to make sure that, that we deal with that. And so we'll continue with that. There was some discussion in our community over the last few days about how the health orders and the shutdown have affected crime in our community. A lot of questions about, is crime down? Is it being reduced as a result of that? So we put a little bit of information available on our Facebook page yesterday, and I'll talk about that a little bit this morning. We have seen a reduction in comparison to this time last year till now, essentially throughout the month of March. We have seen a little bit of a reduction in crime associated probably with the fact that there are just simply less people out. There's less movement in the community, and so we have seen that. As it relates to traffic accidents, we've seen a little bit of a reduction in that as well compared to this time last year, which is probably, again, a reflection of less traffic moving in our community. And so we'll continue to monitor that. It's important for everybody. I know I say this all the time. The same number of police officers that are out in this community today, were out before this, are still out there. We're still answering calls for service. We're still responding to emergency calls and working very hard to keep the city of Leavenworth safe, both from routine matters that we deal with periodically as well as the coronavirus issues. We get about 1 complaint every other day or so at this point from people concerned that someone might be in violation of the health order. We'll go out and we investigate that. And again, we still, as of yet, have not seen a need to cite anybody for any violations. The morale at the police department is really good. The staff continues to work hard and adapt to this new environment that we're in. They're working hard to make sure they're trying to take care of themselves because they're out being potentially exposed. We're having a lot of good discussions. I'm really happy about the way that they're doing things at the police department. They're sanitizing police cars every 8 hours or thereabouts, making sure that we stay up on what the new health orders are, making sure that they have their proper PPEs to protect themselves when they're out. Now, going forward, you may see officers electing to wear a mask as you have contact with them. So, that's a little bit of a new working environment that we're in. We'll just deal with that the best that we can and make sure that we're practicing all of the rules that we're supposed to be doing. That's generally it, Mr. Mayor, for my unless there might be some questions that people have. I've seen some activity on Facebook, just otherwise.
Any questions, Mr. Cranley?
Not related to the chief, just a couple we'll cover here in a minute.
Okay.
Just the operation.
I have a question. How about, because I am concerned, people are, staying at home a lot more frequently, obviously, than when we had normal times. Domestic disturbances or anything, are they up? What, can you say anything just in general about that?
We don't see a spike yet. We do still and have been responding to domestic violence cases, but as of yet, I haven't seen what I would describe as a dramatic spike yet. Now, very likely over the course of the next few weeks, if there continues to be stay-at-home orders and people are at home and their frustration rises and the tension gets a little bit hotter, we might see that. But right now, we haven't seen a dramatic spike where I'd be concerned just yet.
Okay, that's good. But remember, the police department is here. This community has enormous talented people in various organizations. Alliance Against Family Violence is one that comes to mind. If citizens, for one reason or another, need help in addition to or as an alternative to calling the police department. But I just wanted to talk about that because it's an important topic going forward. And Chief, just give my best for myself and my fellow commissioners in terms of our gratitude and our thanks for your force doing their job each and every day and being on the tip of the spear there. So thank you very much, and we appreciate their service to the city.
Thank you, sir.
I am going to talk a little bit about a few things and then turn it over for a little while to the city manager. But our commission meetings are back next week. On Tuesday evening, April 14th at 7 p.m. is our next meeting. It'll be a regular meeting, business meeting. Those meetings air live on Channel 2 as well as stream on Facebook. This coming week, among other items, the commission will consider a land swap agreement with USD 453, consider awarding a bid for a large stormwater project on Independence Court, review blighted structures in our city for consideration to begin the demolition process, review a plan to direct some city-held federal funding to Catholic charities for rent and utility assistance for our residents. And sometime in the not-too-distant future, maybe at a study session on the 21st of April. Oh, and what I wanted to say is that I'll be here, the city manager will be here in the city chambers along with the city clerk. That's probably about it, though. I'm going to have the other commissioners will participate remotely. We'll use an app and a technological means of GoToMeeting to have them to be part of our meeting. I think that's the best way to, it is the best way to conduct our meetings going forward for the foreseeable future. And then we'll have a study session on April 21st. And while I don't think it's scheduled right now, but we do have Shockey Consulting, who is continuing to work as far as doing all the work and facilitating our journey through the process of developing a comprehensive development and redevelopment plan for 2030, which includes a vision, a unifying vision for the city of Leavenworth. So, well, it's not scheduled yet. Sometime in the near future, either at maybe at the study session on April 21st or maybe at the study session at the beginning of May, we'll go ahead and communicate with Shockey remotely using our technology that we have available to get an update and to allow the commissioners to interact with Shockey to get an update on how the study is going, and then so we can find out and give our input as far as what's going to go on over the next few months during that important study. I think I'm going to turn it over to the city manager now, who's got some topics to cover. Mr. Kramer?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police chief mentioned some federal dollars that the city received through the stimulus to purchase some COVID-related items, PPE, hand sanitizer also paid for overtime and such. The city was also fortunate enough through the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, to receive an additional $201,489 in community development block grants. The city receives about $325,000 a year normally in those funds, and what we do with those is we do minor home repair for low and moderate income, we do first-time home buyer program. We also send a good deal of that money out to our third-party agencies. I mentioned last week some of those are CASA, the Alliance Against Family Violence, St. Vincent's Clinic, the Leavenworth Mission. So what this extra $201,000 means is that we're able to provide that influx into the community. The flip side of that is, although we've been awarded that amount, HUD is lagging behind the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development with the rules and regulations on how those dollars can be spent. So hopefully, quickly, we can get the rules and regulations for those dollars, how they can be spent, and then we can see if they're eligible for activities that we don't currently do, such as small business loans or grants, and or some supplemental funding to our third-party agencies that are on the front lines. So I did want to let the public know that we do have that extra $200,000 coming to the city, and as soon as we get the rules and regulations from the federal government that guide that spending, then we'll be able to get those out to the public as soon as we can. A couple other notes before I hit a couple questions. I want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing and how we're trying to protect our employees. The city of Leavenworth complies with all Department of Labor regulations, specifically related to the coronavirus. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act has been passed. That's administered under the Department of Labor. And that applies to our city employees who are sick, who have symptoms, who need quarantine, who have issues beyond their control related to childcare or other factors. And that guides, that's similar to the Family and Medical Leave Act. So just so the public is aware, those are all considerations that the city must comply with related to federal law. The chief mentioned our police officers in the field, and I think sometimes we think about our police officers and our firefighters who are out in the field, but the city, City Hall continues to operate from an administrative side, but we have a number of employees out in the field every day. Solid waste collectors, code enforcement officers, streets crews, wastewater treatment employees, parks crews, building inspectors, and of course, police and fire. So what are we doing to protect those employees? The first thing we're doing is isolating them the best we can. Parks crews are able to mow individually. We have eliminated tasks that require 2 or 3 people to provide spotters or any kind of collaborative work. That's the same thing with our solid waste collectors. If you've noticed your trash may be being picked up a couple hours later than it normally is, that's because we are limiting the number of employees on a truck. There's no good way around doing that work. It is essential for the health and safety and welfare. Our employees have gloves, glasses, eye protection, and they should not be or are not expected to be in contact with the public or any other employees during their route. We staggered start times. Code enforcement officers, we've staggered when they come into the office and then go out into the field. Our building inspectors are still actively inspecting projects such as the Thornton Street project, such as the project at the old Immaculata High School, the Care Pharmacy project. All the construction projects that are going on in the city are still being inspected, and we still have city employees out in the field doing those. So we evaluate that as a management team constantly, ask what can we do better, and continue to look out for our employees. A couple other odds and ends. We're keeping our eye on the ball with other items too. This is flood season, so this morning we got some information and had a conversation about what does the flood forecast look like. Right now, for the city of Leavenworth, it looks good. Warm temperatures have melted snow ahead of the spring rains, which has allowed the system to sort of absorb that snow melt and not be compounded by spring rains. So we continue to monitor that. The reason that concerns us is how do you respond to floods and sandbagging and those efforts, both from a fiscal responsibility and then also from the amount of employee labor it takes to fill those sandbags. I wanted to also let you know that our parks crews are out mowing. They started this week. Our code enforcement crews are out mowing. They started this week. We're continuing to patch potholes, so employees are still performing essential services. We do have a couple questions I'll get to, and please continue to keep sending those. The first question we had again, and we get this, and that's okay. We understand trash bags is a question that we continually get. The Lions Club does deliver those for the city. They didn't have the labor available when they planned to deliver them last month. They have rescheduled for May 30th. City facilities are closed, so you still cannot purchase trash bags from the city. I understand that there are a number of retail outlets, dollar stores, if you can get them, Home Depot, grocery stores that sell those. We ask you again to bear with us. We simply can't open City Hall or have a location where a number of people congregate to purchase trash bags. So the plan right now is the Lions Club to deliver those on May 30th, and then as soon as the city facilities are open, we certainly will start to sell trash bags again. One note on the parks, we do get a few calls about people congregating in parks. The order does encourage and allow use of parks, just not playground equipment, as long as the groups are smaller than 10. So for the city, the stuff that concerns us is tennis courts, the skate park, baseball diamonds where a group may go. We do monitor those every day, our parks crews, and I'd like to say thank you to the residents who are complying with that. The pickleball players out at Cody are dedicated. They're doing a great job staying under 10. The skate park, we're having 5 or 6 use that, and that's a big open space, and there's not a lot of equipment that is touched and used. So we're trying to allow the use of those, and we thank you for complying with those rules.
Good.
Let me check to see if I have any other questions that I can answer. There's a question that masks are recommended. Will the city or county be requiring them? Masks, from my understanding, and again, I'm not a health expert, but we do converse with the public health authorities on this. Masks are designed to protect person-to-person contact. We are trying to, as much as we can, eliminate that person-to-person contact. So at this point, we're not mandating the use of masks. That's going to be, as the chief mentioned, on a case-by-case basis. The police department does interact quite a bit with individuals, so they may do that as they see fit. But overall, there's no mandate from the city that employees wear masks at all times. And finally, we did have a question. I want to address it even though I can't answer it. I hate to do that, but I want to acknowledge the question. Addressing behavioral health as regards to COVID-19 based on social isolation, an important topic. I'm curious, please. That may be, and I'll speak to the mayor, that may be a topic we bring our next guest in. Maybe we have somebody from the Guidance Center or something like that to speak to that. I just don't feel qualified to speak about social isolation or those kind of behavioral health issues, but absolutely crucial topics as we continue to go through this and it expands. That's what we have right now. Mr.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and whether it's the next town hall or maybe the one after, maybe we could ask the executive director of the Guidance Center, Mr. Keith Ricard, to come in and talk. The Guidance Center is one of the resources available in our community for behavioral health. I mentioned Alliance Against Family Violence, CASA, Leavenworth County United Way. We've got a lot of great organizations within this county that can help citizens in need, and there's not time or to go into all that right now, but these organizations are available online, and the information's out there in terms of how to contact representatives from those organizations, in addition to others that I'm not mentioning right now. I would like to, on the solid waste collectors, I mean, in addition to what you talked about as far as the eye protection and the gloves, we are in accordance with all Department of Labor and any state regulations with respect to them performing their duties. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
So that's important, and they're being more deliberate, and you know, there's two on a truck now instead of three, and so there has been a little bit of a delay as far as picking up refuge, but I know that people can live with that. But they, like many other city employees that the city manager talked about, plus just people within our community doing their jobs within our pharmacies and drugstores, within our grocery stores. I could go on and on, but these people are continuing to work and perform essential activities. So I do think of them quite often, and know that they're doing their very best to perform their jobs and support us as an overall community. So thank you to those workers who are on the front lines, and I'll talk a little more about that in a bit in terms of our restaurants. In fact, probably this is a good time to talk about it. Many of our small businesses are local restaurant owners, and this is an update that I received from the director of Leavenworth Main Street, Ms. Wendy Scheit, a couple days ago. Just putting it out. Many of our restaurants are offering meals, either curbside or, in certain cases, delivering those meals. And some of the restaurants that I'll talk about that are doing this in terms of family meals and delivery are the Depot, Tenpenny, Luigi's, 418. They offer family meals and delivery not only within the city of Leavenworth, but also on post at Fort Leavenworth. In fact, I think Wendy Scheit is going to talk. They have 3 days a week. They have a Facebook live town hall, the Garrison Commander, and I think she's going to be on there for about 5 minutes to talk a little bit about the restaurant services and the food services that are available from our small businesses to the Fort Leavenworth community that's on Facebook. Ava's Island Cafe, Rosalind's First City Bakery Cafe, Meriwether's Living Nutrition, First City Cheese Market, New Way Drive-In offer carry-out, curbside pickup. And then a final note, June's Northland is offering a delicious 3-box Sunday brunch carry-out, and that's obviously coming up this Sunday, Easter Sunday. Karma Cakes Bakery is open through the 11th of April, but will close for an indeterminate amount of time after that for several weeks until we have probably some change as far as the stay-at-home orders. So that's the update on Karma Cakes, but they are open through the 11th of April this month. So I appreciate Wendy sharing that information, and there's great information on the Leavenworth Main Street website, their Facebook page about not only the restaurants and small businesses, particularly our restaurants and cafes that are open for business, but also keeping up to date with some of the economic relief information that our small business owners and sole proprietors need going forward. Let me talk a little bit about relief, economic relief, and I'm just going to highlight a few things that we have a direct impact on as a city of the first class, as the first city in Kansas. And I got an update last Friday from the assistant city manager, who is the city manager's main staff person, point person for economic development. So let me just share a couple of points that he shared with me. Leavenworth County, any loan recipient in Leavenworth and Leavenworth County that has received a loan through the various Network Kansas loan programs can access a 4-month interest-only deferral on their loan payments, which is important. I think I mentioned this at one of my previous town halls. Our current loan portfolio within the Network Grow Leavenworth County Development Corporation, this particular organization has injected over $2.3 million into the local business community since 2011 through the sale of state tax credit. That's a very, very important program. A lot of people don't know about that, but it's really important for stimulating new businesses and also allowing existing businesses to maybe ramp it up to a new level or offer a new service or product. So the principal on this 4-month interest-only deferral on their loan payments, the principal payments that are not made during this period will be amortized at the end of the original loan term, extending and thereby extending the term. This allows the businesses greater cash flow flexibility in dealing with the challenges of our current economic situation. And to date, Mr. Taylor, our assistant city manager, has processed 19 deferrals with payments greatly reduced and some at $0 for those with zero interest loans in our portfolio. So that is something that we've been doing, working with certain of our small business entrepreneurs and business owners. There was a program that used all the money. This was about 2 weeks ago. It was a program that some of our restaurants and small businesses took advantage of. It was called the Hire Fund, which really focused on restaurants and hospitality, and it was allowed for up to a 3-year zero interest loan and all funds. But unfortunately, some of our businesses were able to take advantage of this, but it was a popular program, and the funds at this point have been exhausted. But I believe the state is trying to get more, and if in fact they do, we'll put that information out. And then what's going on right now is important from the standpoint of what was passed, the $2.2 trillion relief program stimulus bill that was passed by Congress and then signed by the President, I believe about 10 days ago. The most important part of that is the $350 billion that is to go to small businesses, and this is under a program called the Paycheck Protection Program, which was introduced through the CARES Act, which is this $2.2 trillion Relief Act and stimulus bill that I talked about, the Congress passing and the President signing. And this allows for loan forgiveness when expenses are utilized for payroll, rent, mortgages, utilities, etc. Now, this is a program that small businesses apply directly and work with their lending organizations, their banks, and then the banks make the application to the Small Business Administration. So the first point of contact for our small businesses, and I think, you know, the great majority of them, if not all of them, know that they've got to get a hold of their banker, give them the information that's needed, and then the bank makes the application to the Small Business Administration to provide the loans at a very low interest rate. It's a 1% interest rate. This is the Paycheck Protection Program. A lot of information out there. There's some concern right now. It was rolled out, this very, very enormous program rolled out very quickly. But I know our banks, our lending institutions are working very, very hard with the Small Business Administration. So, you know, I won't say be patient, but to a certain extent, I think they'll, you know, the money needs to come soon, but it may not be available like today or tomorrow. But I know that people at all levels within our federal government, our state government, and our lending institutions, in particular our banks, are working to get the applications in and then get the Small Business Administration to, say yes, approve the application so that money can flow to our small businesses. And that's about the amount of detail that I want to get into at this point. But there's a gentleman named Will Katz. He is the director of the Small Business Development Center that services and that supports Leavenworth County and several other counties, including Douglas County. They have their office at the University of Kansas in Lawrence. He is a wonderful resource. He also comes once a week to, in the past it's come once a week, now is providing his expertise to Leavenworth Main Street and many of our businesses via, remotely, either through Zoom or one of the other technologies. But he would come every week and offer great help, great information in terms of existing businesses and people who were thinking to get into businesses as far as preparing business plans and things like that. He did a video on YouTube, about a half an hour on Monday evening, that talked about the Paycheck Protection Program. I recommend that you can get a hold of him. Put Will Katz into the search engine of Facebook, and that particular session, which was this past Monday night, talking about the Paycheck Protection Program was great. And then the other thing he was talking about was, the acronym is EIDL. It's EIDL loans. And these are loans that have been out there, been around for about 20 years, and it's something that you go directly, a small business would go directly to the Small Business Administration. And I understand some of the small businesses may have already applied for those loans in the last 2 to 3 weeks, which is great. And I would say that if you haven't, look into that. He talks about that at the beginning of his presentation that I just mentioned, this video that he did on Monday, and goes over some of the particulars of how the EIDL loan works and how it will kind of interact with the payment, the Paycheck Protection Program. And his recommendation, and my recommendation, is for small businesses to apply for both. That's the bottom line. Apply for both, and the EIDL maybe even will come back a little more quickly, but apply for both. That's the bottom line of what he told me. Okay, think here. So today I'm going to just sum up things in a minute, but we're probably not going to go for an entire hour today, but we've been at this for about 45 minutes. And so Generally, I would just like to say that the city and the community is doing great. Keep up the very, very good work. I know it's very, very tough in terms of the stay-at-home order, and just know that the commission, me as mayor and my fellow commissioners appreciate everybody doing their very best to stay at home except for essential activities. And then if we can do that, this curve will flatten, will cut down on the number of cases of people actually contracting this disease, and in the end, save lives, which is what this is all about, what we have to continue to focus on, at least for the foreseeable future. And what I would like a little bit to say is that, once again, just reiterating what the focus for the mayor and the commission is during this COVID-19 health crisis, the overriding priority of the city commission, the city manager, and the city staff is to do our very best to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all Leavenworth citizens. That's our priority, that's our mission, that's what we're focused on. And I've talked about and focusing on this priority. We will share, and we have been sharing, pertinent and accurate information relating to COVID-19. We continue to do that. You know, you can get on the city's website, and we've got a link right there when you come to the city's website that focuses on COVID-19 information. There's a link to the county health office where you can get the latest county information. They've got a link to the Kansas Department of Health and Education where you can get the state perspective on the COVID-19 crisis. So just a little heads up on that. And then the other thing is just advocating and getting as much information out there and advocating as much as we possibly can for our small business owners, our sole proprietors, as far as helping them be aware of the programs that are available to help them during the economic, what's happened to our economy as a result of fighting the COVID-19 virus. And so, again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the county's citizens and the city's part of the county who have contracted the virus, and of course their family members and all members of the community who are going to work every day and doing their best to serve their fellow man. And particularly, as I've mentioned previously, all the members of the healthcare profession, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, nurses' aides, and most of us have been following this on the national news. And yesterday I saw a story that just, really, drove home the tremendous service and courage and expertise of our health profession. There was a hospital in New Jersey, Teaneck, New Jersey, which is not too far from where my wife grew up in Leonia. And the name of the hospital is the Holy Name Hospital, and they were featuring and were kind of documenting a nurse, one of the nurses that's embedded as part of that team. And as part of that documentary, which was part of the NBC coverage on a special program on coronavirus last evening, they showed the members of the health team all gowned up in their personal protective equipment, all lined up on both sides of the corridor of the hallway where they were wheeling a man who had worked as a transporter in that hospital for 27 years, man in his 50s or early 60s who got sick as a result of his job and had been in intensive care and unfortunately passed away. And it was just a moving video, a moving image of what's going on at all types of hospitals throughout our country. And they honored him in terms of his service over 27 years to this Holy Name Hospital, and he paid the ultimate sacrifice. So my thoughts and prayers go out to him, to that particular health team at Holy Name Hospital in Teaneck, but all the doctors and nurses and the medical people that are working throughout our nation and in our region and in locally to deal with this pandemic. And then finally, I would just say that we'll have the next Facebook Live Town Hall will be a week from today, unless there's some reason to hold it sooner, but we'll keep it on Wednesdays at, today we did it a little bit later. I don't know, we'll either do it at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., but we'll put that out well in advance. And the other thing is, if you have any suggestions on how this particular Facebook Live Town Hall, how I could improve the improve in some way, shape, or form this particular town hall, don't be afraid to, post a question or post a recommendation on the feed here, or send it to Melissa Bauer, our Public Information Officer, because I'm looking to sustain what we're doing well, but also improve those areas that could be done better, just in the spirit of trying to do things better and better each and every day. So I'm all for learning, listening, learning, and if there's a way to do something better or to deliver this information in a slightly different format, or maybe we're not providing you with information that you think you need, then just come up on the net and let us know. So I will just reiterate to everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, and Governor Cuomo, I think, and yesterday or the day before, just kind of said, this whole situation, this whole fight against the COVID-19 virus, it's about we, it's not about me, and I know our community is living up to that phrase, what he put out there during one of his recent updates as the governor of New York. And so I think that's a good thing to remember. It's about we, it's not about me, but I'm very comfortable that that's what this community is doing each and every day. So keep up the good work. Stay safe, again, stay healthy, and stay home. And until our next Facebook, have a good week, particularly this week, this Holy Week. And hopefully you'll be able to connect with friends and relatives via the technology that we have to do that with. Good morning.